With that, Ms. Hudson, you're recognized to present your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, committee. Colleagues, today I'm presenting House Bill 1880, which is meant to amend the Arkansas Human Life Protection Act to offer some narrow exceptions to our abortion ban. Now, as legislators, we are tasked often with making decisions that reflect the values of our constituents and uphold the principles that guide us as a state. The issue of abortion is one that demands both compassion and careful consideration of the circumstances surrounding each case. This bill presents a proposal to introduce limited exceptions to the state's abortion ban in instances of rape and incest, when the life and health of the mother are at risk, and in cases of fatal fetal abnormalities. These exceptions are designed to address the rare and heart-wrenching situations where a woman is confronted with choices that no one should ever have to face. By allowing for these exceptions, we ensure that our laws reflect not only our commitment to the sanctity of life, but also our ability to respond with humanity and empathy when the circumstances are both extraordinary and tragic. It's about striking the right balance, upholding core values of life, providing necessary protections when there's no clear path forward, and ensuring that we avoid significant physical, emotional, or moral harm to the mother. In the period between 2018 and 2021, Arkansas had a maternal mortality rate of 43.5 deaths per 100,000 births, which is almost double the national average. Notably, Black women in Arkansas face even higher risks, experiencing maternal deaths at a rate of 71 per 100,000 live births, which is more than twice the rate for non-Hispanic white women. Additionally, since 2022, when the Dobbs decision was handed down in the U.S. Supreme Court, we have seen those maternal mortality rates increase in states that have restrictive abortion laws, primarily in southern U.S. states, which has led to tragic outcomes, including near fatalities and preventable deaths among women experiencing pregnancy complications. These laws, which are intended to limit abortion access, have sometimes resulted in delays or denial of necessary medical care, which has exacerbated health risks. And I won't go through all of these now, but all of us have no doubt heard in the news the cases of women in places like Texas, Louisiana, and Alabama who have either died or almost died because they were not provided the abortion care that they needed, the life-saving care that they needed in order to ensure that their health and safety were taken care of. When we're talking about cases of children, right now, it is
So a word of advice, I would not touch the microphone.
I didn't touch it.
I would not touch the microphone at all,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
and then I would speak into it.
Okay.
You have better luck. You're touching it again.
Well, no,
You
I was
just
trying to
can't
move
help
it down. Otherwise, I'm going to be standing up trying to speak
It's going to
into
cut
it.
off again. I'm just giving you insight. Do not touch it, and it won't go off.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As of right now, it is the public policy of the state of Arkansas to require children to give birth. My 13-year-old is trying to call me right now. It is the public policy of the state of Arkansas to tell my 13-year-old, who is not even in high school, that she must carry a pregnancy to term. It's the public policy of the state of Arkansas to tell my 11-year-old son that he's ready to be a father. That is the reality of the state of the law today. We know that when children are forced to give birth, it leads to a number of negative health outcomes for them. The physical toll on their bodies alone is sufficient to justify a need for an exception for these children who are victims of rape and incest. But there is also a significant mental and emotional toll on these children. I would also point out that Arkansas has one of the highest indices of sexual violence against children. And those indices of sexual violence are grossly underreported, especially in cases of rape and incest by a family member. So it's likely that our numbers are even higher. And of those, a significant percentage of those sexual assaults and rapes and instances of incest result in pregnancies that these children are forced to carry to term. To me, it is absolutely appalling that in Arkansas we require children who are not old enough to carry a gun, who are not old enough to buy a pack of cigarettes or some beer or get conscripted into the Army, who are not old enough to make decisions about what library books they want to read. We tell them that they're old enough to have children. Finally, in cases of fatal fetal abnormalities, these are women who are often faced with the most difficult choice of their life for pregnancies that they desperately wanted. These are situations in which doctors, often second and third opinions, have made the conclusion, the devastating conclusion, that the fetus that the woman is carrying is incompatible with life. And we are telling these women that they have no choice in how to move forward. We are telling these women that their lives matter less and that they are merely a vessel for what is likely to be a situation where this fetus is born, may experience pain in the brief time that they are alive, and requiring the mother to go through the agony of giving birth in a situation in which they know that there is absolutely no hope. And I can tell you from friends who have gone through this agonizing situation that it is difficult for them, for their families, and for their other children. I've brought a witness today because I think often the toll and the effect of these laws is lost in the political discourse. And so I brought a witness today to provide some insight as to her experience and to give you a little bit of a real live example of the after effects of dangerous bans like ours. And I would very much appreciate the committee's attention and respect to her.
So, since we do have to leave at 12:15, I'm going to allow this witness to speak. But again, the same ruling as ruled in the previous bill will be in this bill. You will not be allowed to speak again when we come back this afternoon. But we'll pick this bill up first when we come back this afternoon to hear testimony for and against, because we do have quite a few signed up on both sides. So with that, I'll allow you to testify. And that's up to you, Representative Hudson, how you want to do that.
No, that's fine. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good morning. Again, my name is Melissa Farmer. My message is of love unfulfilled. I believe that with great suffering, it can manifest either bitterness or compassion. It's a choice daily to love. The love that I have for Maeve gives me the courage to fight for the world worthy of her. My husband and I were full of hope and the promise of our daughter, Maeve. Our greatest dream was a family with a curly red-headed world changer. At 40 years old, I knew it was now or never. At around 10 weeks of my pregnancy, the Dobbs decision overturned Roe versus Wade, triggering an immediate abortion ban in Missouri. I remember reading a story about a woman in Texas who nearly died from a PPROM. Her water broke early. That is a preterm, premature rupture of the membranes, also known as a water break. The doctors refused to help her. Her story was terrifying. A reality sank in. My pregnancy could become dangerous and even life-threatening. And then it did. A few short weeks later, my dream became a nightmare as I heard the doctor's prognosis of PPROM. They told me to leave the state because the law prevented them from giving me the care that I needed. And even though Maeve was no longer viable, there was a heartbeat. That meant they wouldn't help until I was actively dying. I was haunted by that Texas mother's story, and I took every step to get the care best that I could. I called every hospital within 6 hours of driving from my home to Illinois. No hospital was willing to help me. So finally, I decided to drive to Kansas City, where abortion was legal. I was afraid that my husband would be charged in assisting an abortion, so I drove the entire drive myself. I remember having to Doctors in Kansas City told me the same thing, that even though abortion was legal in Kansas, it was too politically heated in this environment right now to give me my care. Their attorneys would not allow it. They told me to go back to my first hospital and wait for what was next. What was next, they said? It was bleeding, it was pain, it was fear, sepsis, blood clots, hysterectomy. The next day, I called my senator. He was shocked, and he told me that there was an exception for the life of the mother. And surely that ensures and encompasses my situation. He sent me to an anti-abortion clinic as his only option. And of course, he would see the dire situation, so I went. And they confirmed what I already knew, that Maeve wouldn't survive, and they couldn't even say the word abortion, let alone recommend it. I called the senator back, and his response was, I don't know what to tell you. He's pro-life, and he's not going back up for re-election. Good luck. Again, I was in pain, and I was bleeding, and I was scared for my life, while also trying to process this unimaginable grief of losing our daughter. What was pro-life about any of this? That heartbeat, that sound that filled us with joy and hopeful tears, it became my greatest torment. No one should ever have to hear that heartbeat and wish it would end just so that you could live. That sound will haunt me for the rest of my life. And to make things even worse, my own church members told me that I deserved this. That because I was unmarried to my husband, Matt, that this was God's righteous punishment. They asked me to wait in the hospital on their prayer against my doctor's stern advice. In the hospital, I pleaded desperately for Maeve's life, so hard that the hospital sent a NICU doctor down to my room. After describing the torturous ways in which she was being constricted slowly to death by my uterus, I understood the futility of my pleas when he said, "Ma'am, there are things that are worse than death, and I have seen it." That was the strongest way of saying that the hope of Maeve was lost. I finally found help through an abortion hotline, and they got me an appointment the next day, 5.5 hours away, again. This was the third day, and every time we passed the hospital, I thought, should we stop? Will they help me? Will I even survive the rest of this trip? No. I kept driving. When we arrived at the clinic, my husband parked and waited in the car. He watched me walk past protesters with signs and trailers and screens, calling me a murderer. He was powerless entirely in this situation, and he is still trying to deal with this and cope with it to this day. I survived, but not without scars. The physical and the emotional and financial toll of these abortion laws have been devastating. I have gone from a life of being independent, employed, a homeowner, to now disabled, homeless, and I cannot even afford my basic needs. and I can't even remain healthy enough to remain employed. This abortion denial has directly sent my life into a death spiral that I can no longer recover from. This loss is unimaginable, and yet I consider myself fortunate. Because another woman told her story, and that story saved my life. I finally met that brave woman, and now I'm here to continue the work of saving people from harm. I urge you to commit today, as I have years ago, to not let this happen to anyone else. Do not assume that there is safety, even in exceptions. When I was bleeding and I was begging for help, when I was on the verge of losing my life, no politician saved me. Imagine for a moment if doctors tell you that you may die without this care, but some politician says they know what's better for you. Any delay in medical decisions can be catastrophic. Women have died with less time than I had. Little has been done to stop this suffering. In fact, some are pushing for no exceptions. Some states are even calling for murder charges against women like me. They've even suggested that women who have no children or family shouldn't be allowed to vote. Let that sink in for a minute. I lost my ability to have a child forever because of this. So, today, I ask you to support this bill. I ask that the House supports Bill 1880 and give women like me a chance to receive the care that they deserve here in Arkansas, because we're not asking for too much. When we ask for common sense exceptions in our abortion laws, I stand here because somebody once stood for me, and it saved my life. Even if we disagree, even if you would not stand for me, I believe in loving my neighbors, and that love is why I would fight for them. Democracy is the truest form of love. It simply means I may not understand what you're going through, but I will fight for you and your right to freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What is more American than that? Thank you. I just again ask you to vote yes for this bill. Thank you.
Ma'am, thank you for your testimony. Representative Hudson, thank you for bringing this bill. So members, we are up against a hard deadline. What we're going to do is we're going to go into recess. We'll meet 15 minutes upon adjournment. We will continue with this bill, and we'll continue with questions for the witness when we come